Welcome to Bullseye Research Training. My name is Allison Perry, and I work here in our sponsored research department at USF. You are attending this training because you are someone that's going to be going in and creating funding proposals, budgets, SF424 forms, and managing those different levels of review that are currently taking place in the internal form. You are someone who will also be managing an award, so we'll dive into an award workspace and show you some of those processes now being housed within Bullseye Research as well. Our objectives for this session are for you to be able to navigate the Bullseye Research platform, to create and manage a funding proposal and budget, to manage ancillary and department reviews, submit change or clarification requests from your reviewers, and then to just understand the new processes as a whole within this new system. Our agenda for today, we're going to go over logging in, then we'll move into creating that funding proposal, budget, and SF424 forms. We'll move into managing those reviews, going over the different award processes, some notifications that you will receive to your email, and a practice assignment to help you dive in and get used to the new system. Now, this training is going to be a mix of presentation and demo style, so we'll be jumping in and out of this presentation and into the system to demo for you in real time. Some new terms that you might see. The biggest change for this new system is that we are moving away from our current internal form. So the way that you go into the internal form now, you will now be logging into Bullseye Research and initiating that proposal and routing it through your department review in Bullseye Research. Right now, we have something called an underwrite. We're still going to utilize that, but it's going to be known as an advance account within this new system. A SMART form is an online form that contains a series of questions that are answered by an investigator, team member, or the person submitting. Now, the SMART forms are going to be located in all different places of this new system. It's basically just an application where you're plugging in information. Your administrative contacts are your unit research administrators, your fiscal and business analysts, or your department-based research administrators. There are going to be two levels of department review. That first level typically being a chairperson or equivalent, with the second level typically being a dean, associate dean for research, or equivalent. Certifying within Bullseye Research is going to be signing off on the internal form. Now, this is not going to be the same as certifying effort, and we will show you exactly what is being signed off on when we get into the system in just a little bit. Your specialists are going to be those sponsored research administrators, also known as SRAs, and they're located in our sponsored research office. Your designated reviewers are the assistant directors of sponsored research, and those final reviewers are going to be the grant financial administrators, also known as GFAs, located in our sponsored research office. So this is what the Bullseye Research stage site looks like. When you navigate to the link, it'll bring you to this white screen, and you will click Client Login. This stage site link can be found in a few different places. You'll find it here in this presentation, along with on the site where you navigated to watch this video. Now, this stage site is never going to go away. So even after we go live and you're logging into the main site, you can feel free to use this stage site as a resource for however you feel necessary in the future. Now, once we do go live, you will log into Bullseye Research just like any other business system here at USF. So from your My USF page, you would click on the Business Systems dropdown, and Bullseye Research should be close to the top because they are alphabetically organized. Now, anybody that logs into Bullseye Research will land on this general dashboard page. You have your inbox, which are going to be projects that you're directly associated with. So if you're listed as an administrative contact or any one of the members on the research team, those submissions, awards, agreements, whatever they may be, will show up here in your inbox. If you are routed a review, those items will show up in your My Reviews tab. You also have a recently viewed page, and then you have an option to pin items. So there is a pin toggle, and if you select it, those projects will generate into that pin tab for easy navigation. Now that we've talked about navigating your general dashboard, we're going to move into creating a funding proposal. We started on this general dashboard page, and you would navigate to the Grants module. From the Grants module, you will select Create Funding Proposal, and a General Proposal Information Smart Form will populate. Now, a Smart Form, again, is just an online form where we're plugging in information. Once you finish the first General Proposal Information Smart Form and click Continue, the rest of the Smart Forms will populate. Now, this is all of the information that you are used to inputting into the internal form. It's just going to be organized a little bit differently in this system. And again, we will go over all of that when we dive in to show you the demo. Once you have finished all of the smart forms, there is a validate feature. So you would click on that button, and if you received any red error bubbles, it would mean that you missed a required field within those smart forms. If you receive all green check marks, it's the bare minimum for your proposal to route it through department and specialist review. So as you route it, you can still be editing this proposal and your budget in real time. This is a funding proposal workspace, and we're going to see many different workspaces in this system. Now, this blue box in the top right-hand corner tells you which workspace you're working in. I'm going to point out some key pieces of information. We have our funding proposal name in the middle, along with the funding proposal ID that the system will generate for us. Now, once we go live, any proposal that you have submitted within the last 24 months will be uploaded as is, so its unique ID number will remain the same. This project ID is going to be changed for future proposals being submitted after our go live date of May 6th. You have your funding proposal's current state, and we will go over all the different states on the next slide. You have all of the action items, and this is going to be organized by your role within the system. So depending on the credentials you've been given, you have certain action items, and we'll go over the ones that you have the capability of performing when we get into the system. In the center of this workspace, we have a workflow map, and this is just going to track your proposal, where it is, and where it is headed next. Now at the bottom, you have very important information that you can find. So we have a budgets tab, which will list all of your associated budgets within the proposal. If we are submitting system to system, you have an SF424 summary that will generate here. This history tab is one of the key pieces of transparency that we've been pushing and an amazing characteristic that we're really excited to utilize within this new system. The history tab is going to log any activity performed. So any of these buttons that are selected, it will log them here. It will tell you what the activity is, who performed it, and will also give a time and date stamp. So if you ever log in here and you're wondering what is happening with your proposal or who to contact, you should start with this history tab. Your reviewer tabs are going to list the key personnel, reviewers, and grant administrative editors related to the funding proposal. Attachments will list any documents that you've uploaded. Financials will show the expenses for each period in the budget. And you also have reviewer notes if they've been left, related projects if they've been linked, and a change log which will log major changes made within this proposal. Now this is that funding proposal workflow, and all of these bubbles represent a different state that this proposal can be in at any time. So that orange rectangle in the top left-hand corner, these are those different states that can be shown there. So you or your administrative contact will move in to create the proposal, and that will push it to the draft state. From that draft state, you will submit for department review, and depending on what your department reviewer needs, if they're requesting clarification or asking any questions, it will move back and forth between these two states. Once your department reviewer submits it to the level 2 reviewer, again, they may kick it back and forth until it's ready to be submitted to specialist review. Once your SRA is reviewing, same thing can happen. It may bounce them back and forth Just depends on what they're requesting and those questions that they need answers to. Now, depending on the severity of the request, they may push it back through department review, but that's going to be on a situational basis. Once your SRA has approved your submission, they will move to pending submission to sponsor. This is where your SRA will reach out to you and your team to ask if your submission is ready to be submitted. Once you say yes, we will then submit it to the sponsor, and your proposal will remain in this pending sponsor review state until we either hear that it has not been funded, we may get some just-in-time response required, some items that we need to do before we send it back, or we will receive that notice of award. Now, depending on who receives the award notice, you may log it in the system, or our SRA will log it in the system, and then we will add the notice of award and it will become awarded. Now, for the proposal workflow, this would be done here. So your proposal workflow ends at awarded. Now, this is where your SRA would then move in to create your award within the Bullseye Research system. Now, these ancillary reviews are on a category of their own because they can happen at any stage of this workflow. They can also happen at any stage of the award workflow. And we're going to discuss ancillary reviews and what they are a little later on in the training. Now that we've created our proposal, we're going to move into creating a budget. The system is going to default a budget for you, and it's going to name that budget based on the sponsor that you're working with. So for this specific proposal, we are working with the National Institutes of Health. Now you also have an action item to create an additional budget. So if you'd like to work with more than one budget at once, you can add them as needed. Now anything lit up in blue is clickable within this system, so you would click on this link. It would then take you into the budget workspace. So we just looked at the funding proposal workspace, and now we're going to be looking at a budget workspace. So you can see that blue box in the top right-hand corner now says project budget, and our ID starts with BU instead of FP. You still have your name in the middle. Again, this can be edited once you edit your budget ID, those activities that can be performed, so those action items, the budget type, which should always match the funding source. And then again, you have that information at the bottom that is important to find. So you have your financials tab, which breaks down the budget by period. You have a subaward category if any subaward budgets have been created, any attachments that have been uploaded. A snapshot will be generated once the funding proposal has been awarded. And then you have another history tab, which is kept separate from the funding proposal history tab. So any of these action items that are clicked will show up in the budget history tab. Now to edit your budget from the budget workspace, you will just click on Edit Budget. There will be a series of smart forms that open. You will fill out the information and save as necessary. Now, once you exit out of your initial budget after you've edited, all of these numbers will reflect the values that you've input. To create a subaward or cost share budget, you're going to click on Create Subaward or Create Cost Share. Now we will move into system-to-system submissions. So one of the really key characteristics of this system that we're very excited for, especially in our central office, is that we now have the capability to submit directly to grants.gov, and that is what a system-to-system submission is. Now to create an SF424 form, you will click on this Create or Update SF424 form button. A pop-up will generate, and once you've input the package ID that you're going to submit for, it will tell you the required SF424 forms that you need to fill out, and also some optional forms as well. Now, once you click OK, whether you've added any optional forms or not, the status is going to move from pending to complete, and then you will receive a success message that all of the forms have been generated. Once those forms have been generated, there will be a direct link here for you to view. When you click on that link, it takes you into the SF424 workspace. So again, if you look at that blue box, we can see that we're working in an SF424 workspace. So we've seen funding proposal, we've seen project budget, and now we have seen SF424. Now you would move in to edit those grant application or those forms. You would fill out all the required fields and then you would validate for submission. Now, once it is in submission pre-check, we would select that and it would then submit to the sponsor. This is the workflow for the SF424 forms. So you would start with creating those forms. We would then move to that pre-submission state. From pre-submission, we will move to validate for submission. If you have not filled out all the required fields, it will kick it back to this pre-submission state. From valid for submission, it will move to submission pre-check, and then your SRA, once the entire package is ready, will submit to grants.gov. Now, once we submit, it will move to grants.gov internal processing, or the system will kick it back and it will be rejected with errors. Now, to submit your proposal for department review, you will select Submit for Department Review, and it will move to the department review state. Once you click on that button, the PI will get a notification that they need to come in and certify this proposal. Now you can see in this information in the middle, our PI has not certified this yet. Now, once they move in and click certify and sign off on those rules and regulations, this will move to yes. We are going to now move in and demo everything that we just did. So welcome to the stage site. When you navigate to this screen, you will click on Client Login. Now, for stage site purposes only, everybody has been uploaded with the impersonate user option. And what this means is that you can become someone else within the stage site system. And we've done this for training purposes because in order to route a proposal from submission all the way to awarded, you have to become other users within the system. And everybody is uploaded with a certain credentials, and so they can only perform those certain tasks. So how this impersonate screen works is you would find the person that you'd like to become, and you will click on impersonate. Now this screen is organized by last user login. So if you're not finding the person you'd like to become here, you can search by first or last name. Now you are not going to be able to find yourself in this list. In order to be yourself within the stage site, you will click on continue without impersonation. Now for security reasons, this is only going to be available to us within this stage site. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but just a reminder that this stage site is not going anywhere after go live. So if you still want to utilize this as a resource after that go live date, you will always be able to log in here and impersonate others. So for today, we're going to impersonate Rachel Clark, who is a URA with us at USF. So this is Rachel's general dashboard. And you can see that we've used Rachel a lot for other training and for testing purposes. So she has a lot of proposals that she's managing right now. Now, again, your inbox is what projects you are directly associated with. Your reviews are going to be for those projects that are directed to you for review. And this is that little pin toggle. So if you select this button, it will then move it into your pinned items to help with navigation so you're not having to search through as many things. Now you'll see these little help bubbles all over the platform, and that's just to provide you assistance wherever is needed. So to create our proposals, we're going to navigate to the grants module, and we're going to select Create Funding Proposal. And this is a general information smart form. Now you can see these help bubbles here as well. This help will help you on this entire form as a whole, and these help bubbles will help you on each specific question. Now, only the questions with the red asterisk are required to route this proposal for review. So just like in the internal form, you're only required to fill out specific questions. Bullseye Research is going to work the same way. Now, your short title is what is going to populate for your workspace, so in that funding proposal workspace. And it's also going to be how people can search for your proposal and what's going to be pulled when we run certain reports. Now, in the current internal form, you can fill out the layman's or some information about your proposal, and the long title is where you could do so. So you may put some information about your research. You could also add that as a document if you'd like to, or if your department reviewers require you to do so. Now, I am not the PI of this project, so I'm going to exit out of my name. So we're going to click exit next to Rachel Clark. And this ellipses button, if you click on it, gives you a drop down of everybody at USF. Now you can search by first, last name, or their department. So we're going to look for the PI that we are looking for. Now this is going to work the same for the sponsor. Now I just want to point one thing out. If the sponsor that you're working with is not located in here, you would select this to be determined option and add the name of your sponsor in this A right here. Now this list is all of the current sponsors that we work with. So if it is a sponsor that we're already associated with, you can find them in the list and just add them directly. Now we're going to skip over some of these questions that aren't required. I am going to point out some important information, but this is exactly what the stage site is for, so that you can get in and play around with the system as needed. Now, once we click continue here, the system is going to generate our funding proposal ID for us, and the short title is going to generate at the top of these forms. Now our PI shows up here, and this is going to be his prime appointment at USF. This can be changed, so you could exit out of this and put in a different department if necessary. You could add other project personnel. You could add other administrative personnel to have edit or read-only rights as well. This is where that system-to-system opportunity will come in. So if you are submitting to an opportunity through grants.gov and you have one of these IDs, you can plug it in here and click Find, and the package will show up. Now, I just want to show you, if you're not submitting system-to-system, you would select No here. There is an opportunity to add more information, and then you would just not have to generate those SF424 forms. So we're going to select yes, just so I can walk you through that training when we get to that part of the process, but just know that you do not have to submit system to system. Now this is going to be the funding opportunity announcement, and these are all the different SF424 forms that are supported by Bullseye Research. So here on the platform that we generated this new system from supports 99% of these system-to-system submissions, which means that 99% of the time you can fill out every single one of these forms and submit it directly to grants.gov. And then you have some more information about the opportunity that you are applying for. Now, the system is automatically going to default to a 5-year budget period, and this can all be edited. So we're first going to add our submission deadline. This number to date is just going to give us an idea in the central office of when to expect a response from the sponsor. And this is where you could change that effort to months or a percentage, if it was a modular budget or not, and you could also remove or add periods. So I'm going to remove today for training purposes, but you could have as many periods as you'd like. Now, something else that you could do is if you click this Update Periods button, you can change the amount of months, and you can also edit these periods by date. So if you wanted to be more detailed, or however you were setting those durations, you could edit in here. Now, these compliance review questions, as you select yes, they're going to populate more questions based on the answer. And when we get to the ancillary review portion of our training, this is typically what's going to trigger those ancillary reviews for our central office. So again, if you select yes, you'll see more pop-ups. This is information you're already used to providing us in the internal form. Again, it's just being organized and housed in a different place. So we're going to select no for today. And again, I encourage you to go in and play around. That way you know exactly how to navigate this system when we go live. This should always populate to USF. And then you get to those required questions about scientific diving, related persons, if F&A cost will be split. Now this is where that validate feature comes in. So we'll select validate, and we received all green check marks, and you can truly see that this is the bare minimum. So we left a lot of information blank. So once we route this for department review, that will essentially be sending it off for signature in the current internal form. So you can still be editing this proposal and your budget while it's being sent off for that department review. Now, once we click finish, our funding proposal workspace has been generated for us. So we have all of our information in the middle. Our funding proposal ID is up here for us. It shows us our funding proposal's current state. So right now, because we have not routed it for review, it's still here. And you have a lot of these action items. So we're going to go over some of these action items. You can add a comment for anybody on the research team to see. You could also add a document. If you are managing access, this is where you could give people those read-only or edit rights. To send an email, this will send directly from the system. So you'd add your subject line. You have the opportunity to pick people directly associated with the proposal, or you could add anybody from USF. You could use their first, last name, or department to search for them. Now, the content of your email is what's going to show up in this comments, and then you could add any documentation as needed as well. You could export your budget or create an additional budget. You could create a copy of your funding proposal, which would ask you to rename it, and then you could link it to this original one. So if we cancel out of this and we click on Manage Relationships, you could then search for your copy of the proposal and directly link them. You can also link agreements and awards here as well. You could create an agreement, and this is going to create a data use agreement. You can manage tags, which will add a specific tag about the type of research being performed. You can manage these ancillary reviews, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Create and update those SF424s, which we're actually going to push this button after we edit our budget. You could withdraw your proposal, which we're not going to do, just so we can continue the training. And then we will select the Submit for Department Review button in a minute as well. Now, this printer version, if you click on this, it will generate your proposal into a printer version of it so that you can print out as a PDF. So from this workspace, we're going to click on our Budgets tab. And again, this was automatically defaulted for us. So we're going to click on National Institutes of Health, and it's going to bring us into our budget workspace. Now, all of these values are 0 right now because we have not edited anything yet. But you can see a direct link to our proposal here, and you can also see our train of navigation, so you could select your proposal from here. Now you can see your activities here. Some of them are the same. So managing tags is going to do the same thing. Exporting your budget is going to export it. Logging general comments is going to log in the history tab. And then making a copy here will make a copy of your budget. So we're going to start with editing our budget. And those smart forms are going to populate. So this is where you could edit the name of your budget. If you had more than one PI, you could select the one you'd like associated with this budget. If we were not using standard F&A costs, we would select no, and there's a drop down here to edit. Now these little blue rectangles, if you input a value and select it, it'll automatically fill in the value to the right. And if you're working with more than 2 budget periods, they will all populate here to the right as well. We're going to stick with standard F&A costs for today. Now, travel and trainee costs are really going to be for those sponsors that want an itemized breakdown. So if you're having to break down travel by hotel and conference costs and flights, you would want to select yes here. If you're just breaking down travel by a lump sum or travel and domestic costs, you can add it as a general cost later down in the Smart Forms. Same thing is going to be for trainees. So if you're breaking down those pre and postdoc students by tuition and individual itemized budget, you would want to select yes here. If it's just a lump sum, you can go ahead and select no. We are going to import our proposal personnel. And here is where you could update Robert's specific appointment. So if he was an academic appointment and his effort was different for those 9 months than they would be for the 3 months, you could add him as a 9-month appointment, and then you could add him as a second 3-month appointment for those summer months. So for today, we're going to leave it as 12 months. And we're going to select OK. And we are going to edit this. Oh, I forgot to give him a salary. So let's back up a minute and we need to give him a salary. And this is where we could edit his effort and salary being requested. So again, these arrows will fill in automatically to the right. And when you select save, the information will automatically be calculated for you. We're going to go ahead and add some general costs. And once we click continue, we can edit them by period as well. So because we said this equipment was a one-time purchase, we might save, and these values would update for us as well. Now, because we did not have any cost overrides, this is going to say no override. And again, we can select this validate feature, and we've received all green check marks, so we're okay to finish. Now that we've input some information, all of those values are reflected here. And there's not going to be much in these tabs because we haven't clicked any of these buttons. Now, if you were to create a sub-award or cost share, you would do so here. So now that we've input our budget, we're going to navigate back to our funding proposal. And we're going to create our SF424 forms. So we have not generated them yet, so you can see that there's no link here. But once we click Create Update, we receive this pop-up. Now, if you had already created them and you were just updating them, it's going to give you a warning message because any information that you had manually entered is going to be overridden when you update these forms. So I'll explain what that means in just a little further. Oh, these are all of those required forms, and then you also have those optional forms that you can select as well. Now we're going to click OK. It's going to move from processing to completed. We're going to receive a success message, and then this screen is going to close out for us. So we'll click OK. The status will move. We get a success message, and the screen is closed for us. And now you can see that we have a direct link to those forms now. So we're going to click on this link. And this is our SF424 workspace. So again, it's all organized pretty much the same with your action items here and your information to find, but it's just a different workspace in the system. So when you're first logging in, you can click on Edit Grant Application, and this is where all those smart forms populate. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you validate and you have a lot of required items that you've missed. And you will notice that as you're filling out these forms, a lot of the information that you have already input is going to be pulled over. So the department, the address for USF, the specialist that you work with, your identification, and then there are certain questions that are required based on the sponsor that you're working with. So NIH requires certain uploads, and the system will tell you if there's a required field that's not necessarily marked. So for today, I'll show you what it looks like when you select validate. Now, we're never actually going to be able to submit these because it would take the entire training to get this to a state where we could actually submit, but I encourage you to go in and look around. So we are going to exit. And theoretically, when you were finished, you would click on validate submission, but I am going to receive a lot of error messages. When you have finished all the forms, it will move to valid, and then you will click on pre-submission, and then your SRA will move in to submit along with your whole package. Now here you can see you have a few different options. You can import your project budget into the forms. If you're working with a sub-award, you could do that as well. Again, logging a comment is for anybody to see. If you assign editors and readers to this screen, it will be for your SF424 forms. You could also generate them as a PDF. Now you can see that your funding proposal link is over here. It's organized by ID over here, or you can find it by your short title on this screen. So we'll navigate back to our funding proposal workspace. Now, if you had gone in and edited those SF424 forms at all, and you click update, that is what is going to be overrided. So if you're just doing this for the first time, there's no information to override. But if you've input information and then click on this button again, it's going to override anything that you have entered. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on this Submit for Department Review button. You could add any comments or documents as needed. And it's now at department level review. Now, I just want to click through some of these tabs now that we've done a little bit. So our budget, again, just one for now, but you could create additional budgets. Our SF424 summary. So we have a link here and it's in that pre-submission state. Our history is now being created. So we can see that we created the proposal, we created our SF424 forms, and we submitted it for department review. And again, it's telling you who touched your proposal, so who initiated that activity, and it's also giving you a time and date stamp. Your reviewers will be listed here, and it will also tell you which reviewer it's currently in front of. So right now we're at current step 1, so we know that we're waiting on approval from John Johnson. And when we're at approval step 2, we know that we're waiting on Randy Larson. Now we did not add any attachments, but if we did, they'd be here. And then the financials are again going to show that budget by period. So now that we've gone over the funding proposal, we're going to move back into our training presentation and we're going to go over those reviews. So to review a funding proposal as a department or an ancillary reviewer, they're going to log in and click on this Review Funding Proposal button. Now they're going to work through your smart forms the same way that we did, except instead of plugging in information, they're going to be reviewing and responding to that information. So these comment bubbles are organized all over the pages, and as they leave you comments, they will light up orange, and they have the opportunity to require a response from you or not. If they do require a response, you'll see that a little red bubble populates at the top. And until you respond to that, it's going to remain red and you're not going to be able to submit it to department review again. And we're going to do a round of these reviews in the system so that you can see how it works. Now, when your reviewer, whether it's the department or the SRA, logs in, they'll be able to see exactly how many of those threads they've left. To review a budget, they will click on View Budget. Now, there are no comment bubbles on the budget workspace. So if they're leaving you any requests or questions on the budget, they'll have to leave it either as a general comment or in the comment section when they're submitting that review. Now to request changes, they will click on this Request Changes button. It'll move to Clarification Requested, and then it will move to Response Pending from PI. Now, until you respond to those required items, you're not going to get to this screen. It'll give you an error message. But once you have, you'll resubmit for department review and leave any comments and documents as needed. Now to approve, they're just going to click on that approve button. And if it's at that first level, it'll move to the second level. If the second level reviewer is approving, it will then move to your SRA for review. Now to review a proposal as an SRA or specialist, they will click on edit or view funding proposal. They will leave you any comments just like your department reviewer, except they will either click final review, they will then reach out to you to submit, or they will request changes the same way that your department reviewer did. Now, an ancillary review is one that's required from parties not related to the normal workflow. Anybody can assign these ancillary reviews, but it's most commonly done when those compliance questions are answered yes. So when we route an ancillary review, it's typically to someone from IACUC or IRB, someone from that research integrity and compliance office, maybe legal, tech transfer, those types of reviews. Now, this is going to be utilized by this group as of Bullseye Research going live, because if you have two PIs working from different departments, you will add that second department review as an ancillary review, which we will go over how to do that. Now, you can assign an organization or an individual person. If you're routing that review through an organization, it's going to route to anyone with permission from that department. Whereas if you're routing it through an individual, it requires that person to give direct approval. So to assign an ancillary review, you will click on the Manage Ancillary Reviews button, select Add, and then this is the pop-up that you see. So this is the smart form that you will fill out. You select either the organization or the person. You'll designate a review type, and then if the response is required or not. Now, if you select yes here, it will stop that proposal from being able to be submitted until that response is completed. You will log any general comments or documents as needed. Now, as your ancillary reviewer, they will log in, they'll view your funding proposal just like any other reviewer, but instead of clicking request changes, they're just going to submit their ancillary review. So they'll click submit ancillary review, and this is their smart form. Now, number 2 is going to be if they give you their approval or not. So if they're saying yes or no to the proposal. Number 3 is going to clear it from their queue. Now, if they select yes and it's not in their queue, they can still find it as long as they're associated to the proposal. If they select no, they're no longer going to be able to view it in their inbox. And then they would also leave any comments and documents as needed. Now, I showed you where you could check your department and SRA reviewers' progress, but after you add an ancillary review, they will also show up in that reviewers tab for you to be able to track. So we're going to log back into the system, and we're going to complete these department reviews. Now, before we do that, we forgot to certify as the PI. So I want to show you what that certification looks like first. So we're going to switch user, and we're going to log in as our PI, and we're going to click certify. And this is what the PI is signing off on. So just like that internal form, these are those same pieces of information that they're signing off on. So clicking this OK button is basically signing off on the current internal form. So we're going to select OK. And we can see that this now says yes. And it's also logged in our history tab. So if you are a URA and you see that it gets to specialist review and your PI still hasn't certified, you can send them an email and say, just a reminder, you have a proposal to certify and we're not going to be able to submit until that is done. Now you can set up some internal processes. If you'd rather the PI certify later, that's going to be based on your department. So now that we've certified, we are going to move into our department level review 1. So we're going to switch user, and we are going to become John Johnson. And you can see that he has different action items based on his role within the system and within this proposal. So we're going to click on Review Funding Proposal. And now you can see those comment bubbles on the smart form. So there's a comment to leave on this page as a whole, and then there's comments to leave on individual items. Now, as your reviewer moves through, they'll mark their progress. And we're going to leave a couple comments. We're going to designate it as response required. You have to put that you are the department reviewer. And it will log your comment below. Now you can see that it requires a response because it has a little red bubble on top. And we will leave one that's not required just to show you the difference. And you can see that this one is not required. So your department reviewer would work through this. This is going to look the same for an ancillary reviewer or an SRA. So they're all going to work through your proposal the same way. Now, because we're not the reviewer, we can go ahead and exit. And I am going to click on Request Changes. Now we can see exactly the number of threads that were left. And it's also logging the comments that John Johnson left us in the Reviewer Notes tab. So you would get a notification that a department reviewer has requested something from you, and either you as the PI or your URA could go in and respond. So we'll log back in as Rachel. Now, if I click on Submit Changes to Department Reviewer but haven't responded, I'm going to get an error message and not be able to resubmit. So I'm going to have to go into my funding proposal. I can navigate directly to where that comment is. You will click on it, reply, and your comment is then logged underneath. Now you'll want to view all these comments just because they're leaving you information, but again, only the required ones will stop you from being able to resubmit. So we'll go ahead and exit, and your notes are always left here as well. So we have your response to John's request. And now you can submit changes to your department reviewer. Now to assign an ancillary review, we would click on Manage Ancillary Reviews. We would select Add. Now, if you're adding another department, you would do it individual. So you would add that level 1 and then level 2 reviewer. If you were adding an organization, this again is where our central office will come in. So if you've selected yes to any of those compliance questions, this is where your SRA would know which office to route it to. So if we routed it to the IT office, there are certain people with permissions to go in and perform these ancillary reviews, and it would route to anybody that had permission within IT. So we're going to route it to an individual just so you can see what it looks like. You would designate chair dean approval. You would want to select yes because you want that chair or dean approval just like you need on the internal form. And now once I click OK, I would get a notification that I had an ancillary review to complete, and you can see that the ancillary review is here as well. So you can see the type, who the person is, and when it's been completed, if it's been accepted or not. Now, we're not going to go in and do this because it's going to look the same way as your department and specialist review. It's just a different button that they click. So we're going to move back into our presentation. And we're going to go over some of these new award processes. So we have just submitted our proposal, and as most of us know, it does not normally happen overnight that we're getting a response. So say we submit it in the spring and then fall comes around and the sponsor has decided to fund our proposal. There are a few different things that could happen. So if you and your team are the one to receive the award notice, there is an action item on that left-hand column that says Send Grant Status Update. And it's only available to you when it's in that pending sponsor response state. So when we're waiting for the sponsor to tell us if they've funded or not, this is the only time that that Send Grant Status update is available to you. So if you are the one who receives the notice of award, you would select that. You would upload the actual document, and then our SRA would go in and actually log the document on the proposal. Now from there, we would move to create the award. So these are a few things that could happen. So once we have received the notice of award, we would click award letter received. If the sponsor has only communicated their intent to fund, we would click on funding anticipated. And this is how we would do a request for that advance account. So if the sponsor had told you communicated their intent to fund, but funding wasn't coming in for a while, we would want to set up those accounts so that you could start research. So we would click on that funding anticipated button and we would move everything into an advance account. Now, once we receive that award letter, we will go in and we'll log it and it'll move to complete for the award for the proposal workspace, excuse me. So the proposal workflow would be finished at complete, and then we would create your funding award. Now, this is that award workflow. So once we're done with your proposal, we would select create award. It would push it to the draft state. Now, from the draft state, it's going to move through those two levels of review. Depending on what the AD or the GFA needs, it may move back and forth until we're ready to pend activation. Now, because Bullseye Research is really just for pre-award management, our financial system does not talk to Bullseye Research. So this is where your SRA or GFA would have to move into FAST and enter your award information into the financial side of the house. Now, once we've done that, we will either move to activate your account or we will move it into an advance account if you had selected that funding anticipated option. Now, again, ancillary reviews can happen at any stage of this workflow. This is a subaward workflow. So depending on the state of your award, I got ahead of myself, excuse me. So once your award has set up, you would request award modifications on this screen. So you would select request award modification. You will get a smart form that pops up. You would designate what type of award mod it is, and then it would move through those correct levels of review. Now, I do want to point out that this number is different than you're used to seeing. So this ID will start with an 888 after that go live date. So again, any award that we're currently working on will be uploaded as is with their ID numbers. This is just going to be from that future award setup after the May 6th date. Here is the subaward workflow. I got a little ahead of myself. So your SRA will move to create the subaward. And from there, it will either move into the draft state based on if your award is being set up, or this draft state if it is an active award, and then we will move to activate. Now, your award is going to live in that active state until we are ready to close out completely. So for the entire life cycle, research is being done until we've managed all the financing and all the billing is done. We will leave it in that active state. And then after that, somebody will move to actually close out. And what that is it's a click of a button. So somebody will move in and click complete, and this award will move to the complete status, which is essentially close out. So I am going to show you an award that's already set up so that you can see what it looks like. And so this is an award workspace. And so you can see the link to my original funding proposal here. Now this is at the draft state, so it will move through those levels of review and then become active. But I just wanted to show you that it's organized the same way. So all of your action items are here and all of your information to find is down here. Now, a lot of your action items are the same, and a lot of these you won't necessarily be utilizing. The person from the central office will be utilizing this. So for this specific award, it'll be Janet Lipka that's really focusing in and clicking on these activities. Now, the other really important information I'd like to show you is at the bottom. So you have your totals. Your funding allocations are again by period of the budget. And I want to show you this related projects tab, because any agreements that are created for you will also show up here. So you not only have the direct link to your proposal, but you also have a direct link to your agreements as they're being set up as well. Now, when we click on the reviewers tab, this is going to show the reviewers specific to the award. So you can see the PI, you can see us, the URA still, and then you can see both specialists that have been working with the proposal and the award. So we're going to look at just those email notifications so that you know what to expect from the system. The first one you will receive, again, is when we submit for department review. The PI will get a notification along with the URA that they have a proposal to certify. Now, how these emails are set up is this will be a direct link into the workspace that the action item was clicked from. So we click submit to department review from that funding proposal workspace. So this is a direct link into that funding proposal. Now, if you click on this, you'll still have to go through authentication, but you do not have to log in through My USF. You can log in directly from this link. You will receive a notification when the department reviewer is requesting a change. Same thing if your specialist is requesting a change. You will receive a notification when we've submitted your proposal to the sponsor. Now, if you are the one to route an ancillary review, you will get a notification when that person has completed their review. If you send or receive an email from the system, this is what it'll look like. So again, the comments is where the content of that email is going to be. If there are any post-submission changes needed, so any JIT response required from the sponsor, you'll get a notification if you've submitted system to system. When you send a grant status update, your admin contact and your specialist will get that notification. So if you're the one to receive that award notice, you would want to send them a notification so that they could move in and set up the award for you. Once an award letter is received, everybody will receive a notification. When we activate the award, everybody will receive a notification. If we move your award into an advance account, again, that's an underwrite. Everybody will receive a notification. And if you were to withdraw for any reason, funding proposal or award, you'll receive a notification. If it's a funding proposal, this would be the funding proposal ID, and it would say this proposal was withdrawn, but they will look the same other than that. So from here, it's now your turn. So this is the end of the training, and I'm going to provide you some resources to look at afterwards so you can get in and play around. So this is really your chance to log into the system and become familiar with the new processes before go live. Now, I know a lot of people taking this training, it's pretty close to go live. So if you have any questions at all, please contact us through that Bullseye Research Teams chat. Now, that's going to be a direct chat to myself and a few other members of our key team. So it's a very quick turnaround time. So if you cannot contact us for whatever reason, if office hours aren't happening for a while, please just directly message us on that Teams chat. Now, just a reminder that you are in a testing environment and you can't mess anything up. We encourage you to try to mess it up. That's the point of this testing before we go live. Now, you are a fresh set of eyes in the system. So if you want to give us any feedback, any questions, if you want to run any business processes by us, we are just here to support you through this go live period. So please utilize this Teams chat as necessary. Now, here are those helpful links and resources. So there's a lot of resources posted to that Bullseye Research website for you. So there's going to be these recording trainings for all of the different roles, along with a lot of how-to guides, some short navigation videos, really just a lot of resources to help you with what you need. Now, we also have this homework assignment. It is not homework, it's just a guide. It will do what we did here today. So it'll tell you who to log in as and what buttons to click to route a full life cycle from proposal setup all the way through closing out that award. I just want to go over this user impersonation screen one more time. So if you log into the Stage site and you don't have this option, please send me a Teams message. It's a very quick fix and I'll get it fixed for you right away. If you'd like to become Rebecca Sims, you'll click on impersonate next to her name. If you're not finding the person you're looking for, you will look for first or last name. And then if you want to be yourself, remember you have to continue without impersonation. With that being said, this is a quick survey just to make my training better for the future. I will be around on Teams and email. If you have any questions at all, you can contact me at allisoncondon@usf.edu. My name is Allison Perry. You could also look for me that way. And then I just want to thank everybody for taking their time. I know, especially this time of the year with faculty, you guys are so busy and you are such an essential part of this process. So if you do have any questions at all, please contact us because we want to get everything worked out for you and so that you're comfortable utilizing this system when we do go live. We are very excited for this new system and we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Go Bulls!